Good morning, good morning. Today is Yud Aleph Sivan. We are still in Yamei Tashlumin, still including tomorrow, to be able to make up everything we want to make up for in terms of, or to complete in terms of Chag HaShavuos and what it means to you. One of the things that stayed with me, like touched me very much this Shavuos, is what the Rebbeim say, that Shavuos is a very special time. When I mentioned it, I don't know if in this class or another class, that it's very similar. It's the same as that Kiras HaShofar on Rosh Hashanah, and the Tefillah or the Ne'ilah, of Yom Kippur, which means that on Shavuos, like those other two times, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Hashem is totally siding with Am Yisrael in such a way that he doesn't allow the Satan to utter and to express any criticism of the Jewish people. It's completely blocked. So if it's Yemei Tashlumim, it's also Mitzad HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so we still can ask that so should be not only on Shavuos, but so should be the Gantzio, the whole year, that Hashem should completely side with us without being at all subjected to any kind of criticism of the Jewish people, who already demonstrated enough loyalty to Hashem to be relied on as his best partners, and therefore he should bring the Geula Amitis V'Ashleima, take biad mamash now. So it's Reish Chaf Vav, ובאמש שדרך זו של הרמ"ק נכונה וסלולה יותר. Last time we concluded explaining the Shita of the Ramak. Number one, the Ishavus, creation, comes from the essence of Hashem, Hashem himself, which only him is Ein Sof. Number two, creation doesn't affect any change on Hashem because it's done in a manner of makif, of indirect way, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not an ilah, not a direct cause for and source of worlds. Rather, he is only a siba, the reason, an indirect cause and reason, but not a direct reason. And therefore, when creation is done in a manner of siba and mesubab, a reason and a result rather than a cause and an effect, then it is not affecting any change in the siba, in the cause. That's the creation yesh me'ayin. It's done in a manner of a tremendous gap that is not bridgeable, so to speak. And therefore, there is no effect on the creator. In any case, the second point is that creation is done in an indirect way, in a makif way, in a transcendental way, and therefore the result of creation, which is the world, does not cause any change in the creator. The third one of the Ramak, the principle of the Ramak, is to remember the advantage of this view of the Ramak. Number one, you don't need to say about anything but God himself that is Kadmon. So nothing else is Kadmon Kekadmuso, is as primordial as he is. And you don't have to say about anything else that it is Kadmon, that it is primordial, except for God himself. That's the straightforward way. Number two, you don't have to say about Keser, the way the Mekubalim do, that which is Keser is a sphere that has a character, a tzio to it, a form to it. You don't have to say about Keser that it is Kadmon, that it is primordial. And the Mekubalim do say that. And as we learn, the Ramak disagrees. And number 4, we got to the conclusion of the Rebbe RASHA representing the Shita of Hasidus is V'chein hu ha'emes, that this, and so is the truth. This time Hasidus sides with the Ramak and claims that the Shita, the view of the Ramak, of Moshe Cordovero, is more truthful and is more correct according or through the view of Teras HaChasidus. And we are continuing this discussion, and you need to understand that this continuation, first of all, we can be impressed that we women are now in the middle of a pilpul in Hasidus, if I may say so. I think I even heard it maybe. It's a pilpul in Chassidus. It's a pilpul about this shita and that shita and this view and that view, and I'm upschlagging this one. What is a pilpul in a Gemara? A opinion is presented, and then a contradiction comes, and a contradiction to the contradiction, or reservation about it, or it applies only certain ways, and there is a limitation of it. And then there is someone who comes and completely turns it over and said, no, he meant something completely different. So this is what we are doing now. There are different views of understanding how creation happens in terms of the relation between the Creator and the world and creation. And this is very important because, as we said last time, according to the Shita of the Mekubalim that we will not today abschlag even more, we will contradict it, or we will not contradict it. I don't want to be disrespectful to these holy people. That Hasidus will challenge it with questions. Keser is the one that creates. So we said last time, does that mean that God himself, we have nothing to do with him, even though indirectly he is the cause of all causes? But if Keser is the one that creates, so when we are aiming to ascend to higher realities and get closer and closer to our Creator, does that mean that the top or the highest of where we can reach is Keser and not Atzmos? So our top ideal relationship is only with Keser? That's devastating. According to our view that Keser is a sphere. It's a big problem. In any case, we are in the middle of a pilpul in Pnimius HaTorah, okay? But the pilpul is not just that it's a brain exercise, not at all. And that could be also, but that's not the point here. You'll see how this discussion, which, hopefully you will survive it all, because it's really a pilpul in Kabbalah. In the Pnimius perspective of the relation between the Creator and creation. And it makes a big difference. And Hasidus resolves it all. And that's the appreciation that you need to have now to go through it successfully and survive it, because it's very detailed, is that this discussion leads you to understand more and appreciate much more the Shita of Hasidus, how Hasidus resolves all questions and brings you to the top of where you can get, which is an intimate relation with God himself, with Atzmos and Mahus. So, let's dive in. So, after explaining the Shita of the Ramak and determining that Ken hu ha'emes, that the Rebbe RASHA says, so is the truth. Now the Rebbe RASHA is presenting questions on the Shita of the Mekubalim. First of all, the Rebbe is saying we need to understand the approach of the Mekubalim, that how can you say about Ratzon, the divine will or desire, Keser, which is I don't know, call issued by, sourced by, comes about from Atzmus. No matter how you will look at what Keser is and where it is in relation to Atzmus, you have to say it's coming from Atzmus. What is Ratzon by a person? A Ratzon comes from the person. The person now will have or not a will. It comes from the Nefesh itself. So how can Kabbalah say about Ratzon, which is coming from Atzmus, that it is Ratzon Kadum? Kabbalah calls it Ratzon Kadum. It's a primordial Ratzon, which means it's Kadmon. How can you say that? It's caused by Atzmus. It comes from Atzmus. It's not number one, it's number two. And in order to understand it, the question clearly, the problem here, the Rebbe will extend the question by saying, you know what? Even Or Ein Sof, in which Ratzon came or comes up, that's the Shita of the Arizal and Hasidus. You cannot call it Kadmon. We don't call Or Ein Sof Kadmon, even though it's Nitzchi, it's eternal, and it always was actually. But we will see what kind of Hamshacha and Ha'ara from Hashem Or Ein Sof is. That on one hand, it is automatic, so to speak, or natural, or comes about naturally without Hashem needing to invest himself, like Or. And at the same time, we will learn about Ha'ara Retzonis. It's Or, but not like the Or of the sun. The light of the sun is Ha'ara Tivis. What does it mean, Ha'ara Tivis? A natural Ha'ara, that the sun is Mukhrach, the sun has to shine. So it's true that the sun light comes out of the sun naturally, without the sun making an effort. And in that sense, the mashal is good. That's how Or Ein Sof comes, without Hashem investing it, creating it. It's Ha'ara, it comes memele, it comes in a natural way. However, at the same time, it's not like the sun. Why? Because the sun has to shine. This is how Hashem created it. It's mukhrach. For the sun to shine, it's a must. The sun doesn't have a choice about it. Unlike the way Or Ein Sof comes from Hashem, on one hand it comes in a manner of mimele, naturally without Hashem needing to create it and to invest himself in the light to come out. At the same time, is the Ara Ratzonis. It's with Hashem's will. It's with Hashem's agreement, with Hashem's choice. He can either shine Or Ein Sof or not. So we will learn about it. That's a very interesting concept, a dual-sided concept, Ara Ratzonis. But for now, the Rebbe will say that even Or Ein Sof, which is higher than Keser, according to our understanding, Keser, Alos HaRatzon, where did the divine will come up? In Or Ein Sof. So even Or Ein Sof, in which Keser comes up to create world, Or Ein Sof is not called Kadum, is not called Kadmon, because it has a beginning, it has a source, and therefore it cannot have it in time, no, But in my light has a source. It's number two, it's not number one, it's not Atzmus. And therefore cannot be called Kadmon. So how can you say it about Keser, which Keser is even more, if way more Tziur, it's a sphere, way more Tziur than Or and Sof, that he cannot be defined at all, as we learn about what Ein Sof means. That there is no definition, no Toarim, no descriptions. And Keser is a description. So how can you say about Keser this is Kadum? That's one question that the Rebbe RASHA challenges the view of the Mekubalim that say that Keser is Kadmon Kekadmuso, Ein Sof and it's Kadmon. Okay, so let's read inside a little bit. Uve'emes, and this is the truth, in truth, שדרך זו של הרמ"ק נכונה וסלולה יותר. That this path of the Ramak, of Moshe Cordovero, is more correct and more paved, more walkable than the path that the Mekubalim paved. שאי אפשר לומר כלל עניין רצון קדום. It's not possible to say at all, please mute yourself, it's not possible to say at all רצון קדום, a primordial רצון. So yes, שיטת הרמ"ק נכונה או סלולה יותר, ציפי, please mute yourself. And Torah HaChasidus follows the principles of the Shita of the Ramak. Later on, we'll see that that also has to be, we need to see the differences between the Shita of the Ramak and what was missing that Hasidus completed. So Rabbi Gopin is making a comment here. We established that we are siding with the Ramak, rather than the Mekubalim that says that Keser is in Atzmus and in its Kadmon, Kadmuso, and its Ein Sof. Rabbi Gopin says we have to remember, now we have to become aware or remember that the Shita of the Ramak presents a few issues. The Ramak doesn't give an answer to a few questions. Number one, the way the Ramak resolves the Inyan of Ani Havai Lo Shanisi. So the Ramak says it is so because Havai doesn't change, because the creation is done in a manner of Makif, in an indirect, transcendental way, so Hashem is not affected. It's only a Siba, not an Ila. But Sof, says Rabbi Gopin, even if the creation is done in a manner of makif, indirect. Okay, so it's not a direct way of creation, it's indirect. But it's still, there is a certain relation, a certain closeness between the Boyer and the divine, between the creator and the creations. So you say that the relation is not direct, it's indirect. Okay, indirect, but it's still a relation. There is an interest of the creator in the creation. So it's not glatt, it's not smooth to say that there is no shinui, there is no change. That's a major issue with the Ramak, which Hasidus resolves with the addition of Or and Sof. That is and Sof, not because of itself, but because of Me'ein Amaro, as we will learn more and more. So that's one issue with the Ramak. So okay, creation is marked in a manner of what Makif, and we say, okay, Makif, fine, less direct, indirect, but there's a relation here, there's an interest here. How can you say that if there is a relation, even an indirect relation, but there's a relation, there's interest in the creator of the creator in the creation, and as a result, things happen. So they happen indirectly. But how can you say that there's no shinui? It doesn't stimmt nicht. It doesn't fit logically. That's number one. Number two, we have big two advantages in the Shita of the Mekubalim. Number one, that Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, that עד שנברא העולם היה הוא ושמו בלבד, that until the world was created, and world means the whole Seder Ishtalshelus, there was only him and his name. So who is Shmo, according to Ramak? The Mekubalim, we know. What is Shmo? What is his name according to the Mekubalim? Ladies, unmute yourself. What is Shmo according to his name, according to the Mekubalim?
His rat sign?
Yes, Keser, Ratzon. That's Shmo. So say Yayahu Shmo. You see, they say, until Nivra Olam, even before the world was created, there was him, and his name Keser. And Keser is Kadmon, Kekadmuso. There is only very glad. Number two, and the Ramak doesn't answer. Who is Shmo according to the Ramak? Extra bonus to those who will give the answer of Hasidus. It's called Yecholes, which means the way the Or and Sof is kalul still in the Ma'or. It's included still in the Ma'or. It's part of the source. That's called Yecholes, and that is Kadmon Kekadmus, so it's part of the Etzem. Number one. Number two, as we mentioned, why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is called Ein Sof and not Ein Lo Tchila? No end and no, and rather than no beginning. We know that no beginning is higher. And about these two questions, there is no answer in the Shita of the Ramak. Hasidus will say, yes, Or Ein Sof is called Ein Sof because it has a Tchila. It has a beginning, it's a Ma'or, and therefore we don't call Or Ein Sof Or Ein Tchila. We call it Or Ein Sof. But we add that mitzad the Or itself, which means it's an eternal light, but it has a beginning. That's as far as the Or itself. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but we're putting it together. But then you add the inyan that Fegi just said. That Me'or mitzad itself, it's not Ein Sof. It's not really Ein Sof. Because we learn that real Ein Sof is Enot Chila. That's the real Ein Sof. So Or Ein Sof, you cannot even call it Ein Sof in the true sense of Ein Sof. You can say Ein Sof Lispashtuso, that it's spreading infinitely, okay. But it's not really Ein Sof because it has a beginning. So how can it create? We learn that only Atzmus can create and only the true Ein Sof can create. And if Or Ein Sof is not really Ein Sof, why, first of all, why we call it Ein Sof? So Fegi says, because it's Me'ein Amar. It itself, by itself, has a limitation. Yesh lo tchila, it has a beginning. It's not Kadmon. But since it's Me'ein Amar, because of its dveikus, its oneness, its cleaving to, its bitul, to the source, it carries the quality of kadmus of the source itself. And therefore it can create as well. But bottom line, that about these two questions, meaning what is Yahu Shmo Bilbad, what is Shmo, and why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is called Ein Sof and not Ein Tchila, there is no answer in the Shita of the Ramak. And in the next chapter, there will be even more questions presented about the Ramak, in addition to these two questions that are not answered.
Hannah, when we say HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what are we referring to?
The Creator.
The Creator. Hashem as the Creator, not necessarily Atzmos.
It depends in the context of what discussion. You know, sometimes the Kadosh Baruch Hu is Zod of Atzilus, and the Shechina is Malchus of Atzilus. It depends what you in what Kadosh Baruch Hu means, the one that is transcendent. So when you okay, let's say that in our discussion, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when God is God Himself, Atzmus, okay? But sometimes you will see that Or and Sof is called HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Because it carries the qualities of Atzmus. It's like the Creator. It creates. Creation is done by the Or that carries the Ma'or in it. Okay, we'll talk. I'm throwing everything into the pot, and it's becoming a challenge. But let's see. So let's see what Rabbi Gopin is saying now. So we have all these questions about the Ramak. First of all, Ani lo Shaniti is not 100% because there's still an indirect relation and there's an interest. It's not, how can you say it's not change at all? And then the two questions, what is Shmo? And why it's called Ein Sof and not Ein Tchila? However, says Rabbi Gopin, according to the Chidush of the Alter Rebbe, so this discussion is leading us again and again towards the salvation of this whole mental pilpul, the resolution of it through the Shita of the Alter Rebbe that we will, in the next Maimar, focus on. So according to the Chidush, the innovation of the Alter Rebbe, that Ein Sof relates to the Or, which is Me'ein Ma'or, the light which resembles the luminary, and it is the one that creates the worlds, Or and Sof. All these three questions on the Shita of the Ramak are being answered. How so? Number one, in the Atzmus of Hashem there is no Shinui, only in the Or that creates. So now that we know that the creation is done through the light, because the light is me'ein ma'or, and therefore it has a quality of the atzmus, the ability to create, but the actual creation is done through the light, and therefore there is no change in atzmus. There is change in light, in the light, but not in atzmus. And even in the light, there's no in etzem ma'or there is no change probably either. But I don't want to confuse here. Bottom line is, according to Hasidus, based on the Arizal, the creation is done through the light. How the light can create, even though it has a beginning, because it's Me'ein Ma'or, it creates the qualities of Kadmon, of Me'ein Ma'or, resembling and carrying the qualities of the source, and therefore it's the light that creates, and therefore it's the light that changes. Atzmus doesn't change. Ani havai lo shanisi. So that's how Hasidus resolves the first question, which, according to the Ramak, creation is done straight from Atzmus, not from the light. And therefore we say, hey, and the Mekubalim are the first one. Hey, how can you say that creation is done through Atzmus and say that Ani havai lo shanisi? And they say, no, it's created from Keser, who by itself is Ein Sof and Kadmon, the Kadmuso. Hasidus doesn't say that Or and Sof that creates is by itself Kadmon. No, Or is not Kadmon. Or is a beginning, cannot be Kadmon. But because it's Me'ein Ma'or, it carries the Kadmon quality of the source. According to the Mekubalim, no, it's Keser itself, of itself, that has these qualities of infinity, of Ein Sof, and no beginning, and so on. So Hasidus resolves, no, it's not. Yes, the power to create comes from Atzmus only, agreeing with the Ramak, nothing else can create, but Lemaiser, practically, the creation is done through the Or, which because it's Me'ein HaMa'or, it carries the Kadmus of the source and it creates. And since it creates and not Atzmus creates, Ani havai lo shanisi, Atzmus doesn't change. Fine, number one. Number two, what is Ma'amar Chazal, Hayahu Ushmo Levad? that how in Pirkei Rabbi de Eliezer, Rabboseinu Zichronam Livracha, that every word of those words were truth, emes. What does it mean? That ad shenivra ha'olam hayahu ushmo bilvad, that until the world was created, there was him and his name. The Ramak doesn't give an answer to that. What is Shmo according to Hasidus, as we just explained before? It is Or Ein Sof HaKalul Be'atzmuso. It's Or Ein Sof, the way it is still included in Atzmus, in God Himself, before it is revealed out of God, so to speak. Nothing out of God. Where is out of God? Hashem is everywhere. But before it's revealed, it's relatable, it's in Kalul, the way the Or is Kalul in the Mao. The Or is included in the source. About that, you can say Kadum. The Yecholes, the Or, the way it is included in the source, that you can call Kadum, primordial, and it's called Kodem Sheniva Olam, meaning before the world was created. That's the Yecholes, which we will talk about a lot, two Maimarim from now, Bezrat Hashem. So that resolves the question, what is Shmo? Him and his name is him and the way he includes the light, his expression, Yecholes. So that answers the question, the second question, what is Shmo? And the third, what was the third? Why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is called Ein Sof and not Ein Lo Tchila? Because the light has a beginning. So when we call Or Ein Sof, so we call it the Or Ein Sof, not Or Ein Lo Tchila, because there is a Tchila, the Atzmus of Hashem. So many times in the Zohar, Ein Sof means Or Ein Sof. So why not Or Ein Tchila? Because it has a Tchila. It's not really Kadmon. Or by itself is not Kadmon. It doesn't have a Kadmus. It's not primordial because it has a source. It has a beginning. And therefore, we call it Or Ein Sof and not Or Ein Tchila. So Hasidus doesn't object that. It says, you're right. Or itself is not like Keser according to the Mekubalim. Keser according to the Mekubalim is infinite, is Kadmon, always was, and has the Kadmus of Hashem. And the infinity, the Ein Sofness of Hashem. By itself. Hasidus says, no. First of all, Keser Bechlal is a sphere, so how can you say that? But even Or Ein Sof, Hasidus says, we call it Ein Sof, we don't call it Ein Lo Tchila. Because it has, and Keser as well, no matter where it is, it has a beginning, it comes from Atzmus. You cannot equate it to Atzmus. And therefore you cannot call it Kadmus or Kadmon, primordial. So the Rebbe says, אי אפשר לומר כלל, now coming back, you cannot say about Ratzon the term Kadum, which the Mekubalim say, that the Ratzon is Ratzon Kadum, a primordial desire that was always there with God. But it's, Hasidus will say, what do you mean? Like you look like a person. Sometimes you can want, sometimes you don't want. It's something that you issue. How can you say that you want is as primordial as you? In any case, we'll talk about it more. ומאחר שזהו בחינס מציאוס דבר, שאינו בחינס עצמוס, how can you call Keser or Ratzon Kadum? Since the Rebbe says, you're talking about a metzius of something, the existence of something, Keser, which is not Atzmus. You don't call it Atzmus, you call it Keser. You mean something else but Atzmus, other than Atzmus. איך נאמר על זה שהוא קדום חס ושלום? How can you say about something other than Atzmus that it is קדום. This is primordial. שזה אינו שייך כי אם על העצמוס, לא על זולתו. Because we already established that to say kadum, kadmon, you can only say about Atmos, nothing else. Because it's only Atmos that was not preceded by anything else. And the Keser is preceded by Atmos. According to the view of the Mekubalim, the Ratzon is considered Ein Sof because it's on Maila, and not because it's bittul to Hashem. We say that Ein Sof is called Ein Sof, not because of itself, because of its bittul to Hashem. The Mekubalim says, no, Keser is Ein Sof by itself, whether it's bittul or not bittul, so to speak. So how can you say about something which is other than Atzmus that is Kadmon? ואם כן, and if so, says the Rebbe, בחינס הרצון שאינו עצמוס, והוא נמצא מן העצמוס, איך נאמר על זה קדום חס ושלום. And if this is the case, this aspect of ratzon, which the Mekubalim also say it's ratzon, it's not atzmus. So this aspect of ratzon she'eino atzmus, which is not atzmus, והוא נמצא מן העצמוס, and it is issued from עצמוס, איך נאמר על זה קדום חס ושלום. How can you say about it קדום, קדמון, primordial? Not only that it's something in addition to עצמוס or other than עצמוס, but here the Rebbe adds another point. It also comes from עצמוס. Number one, it says there are two things. It's not עצמוס, it's another thing. Okay, how can you say another thing but Atzmus Kadmon? Number two, even stronger, it is coming from Atzmus. Atzmus issues it. So how can you say that it's Kadmon? Atzmus is one and Keser is number two. How can you say that Keser is Kadmon? There can be a matzav, a state that there is no will. And we'll develop that. It's called Heder. The existence that is preceded even theoretically by non-existence. וגם באור אין סוף שלפני הצמצום, במה ששייך לומר בחינס עלות הרצון, הוא מחודש. So now the Rebbe said what I mentioned before, that even in Or and Sof, forget about Keser. Keser is lower than Or and Sof. Keser comes up in Or and Sof. So even in Or and Sof shalifne atzimtzum, that before the tzimtzum, in Or and Sof, in what shayach to say, the level that is in which it, regarding which it is shayach to say Allah birtzono, that it came up in Hashem's will. B'chinas alos haratzon is called. The ascending of will, the showing up of will. So first there is Or and Sof. And then in Or and Sof there is the rising of the will to create worlds. Alos haratzon, it's called in Kabbalah. To create the world. So even, the Rebbe is saying here that even in Or and Sof before the Tzimtzum, in the level of Or and Sof in which the Ratzon came up, the divine will arose, which preceded the Ratzon itself, even that aspect is Mechodash. It means it's something new. It wasn't there before. It has a beginning. The truth is that Or and Sof was always there. But it was there in a manner of Retzoni, which, as we said before, that it was with Hashem's willing permission. In any case, so the Rebbe is saying even Or and Sof, which is higher than Keser, in which Keser came up, it's mechudash. It has a beginning. It's new. It's not. We don't say it kadmon. How much more so the keser, the ratzon itself, after the tzimtzum. Keser comes after the tzimtzum. For sure it's mechudash. For sure it's innovated. For sure it's new. For sure it has a beginning. For sure it's not kadmon, it's not primordial. How can you say about Keser that is kadmon? So here the Rebbe is challenging the Mekubalim. וכמו כן הוא בכלל לא בחינת אור, שהוא מחודש. And so too, generally to gesund, about light, that the light is מחודש, the light is anew. והיינו שהוא נמצא ממנו ורצונו דווקא. That the light, אור אינסוף, the light, comes from Hashem, and ברצונו, willingly. לא בהכרח, חס ושלום, not forcefully, not a must, not like the sun. The sun has to shine. It has no choice. It has to emit light. And it does it by itself, naturally, so to speak. But by Hashem is לא בהכרח, חס ושלום. It doesn't have to emit light. Even though when he agrees the light should be emitted, it's emitted by itself. אם כן, הרי זה כמו שקדמו ההדר. And so too, philosophically, says the Rebbe, look at the whole thing of Or Ein Sof, even higher than Keser, as something that was preceded by He'eder. He'eder means absence. It is mechudash. It can be considered as if something that was preceded by not existing, since it has a source that wills it. So what he's saying now in these last two sentences is not only the level of the light in which alos haratzon happens, in which it comes up the will that relates to worlds, the will to have world, is a mechudeshes, is not kadmon, is a new. But even klalus haor, the Rebbe says, the general light, the whole light, even the level higher than the light in which Ratzon was, Ratzon came up. Everything is depending on the Ratzon of Hashem. And therefore the Rebbe will call it Ve'im ken, and if this is the case, הרי זה כמו שקדמו ההדר. It is like, the word כמו is very important here. We will meditate on that more, reflect on it more. But it's כמו שקדמו ההדר. It is as if it was preceded by non-existence, because it has a source that brings it out. והוא מחודש, and it is anew. And בוודאי, surely, that the רצון itself, קדמו ההדר. רצון itself, certainly you can say, that was preceded by non-existence. היעדר means non-existence, the absence of it. So, if Or Ein Sof itself, you can say that it's like קדמו ההדר, the sphere of Keser, for sure, is mechudash, is kadmo ha'eder, not kemo, kadmo ha'eder. It didn't exist before. These are different levels of Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum, about which we will talk at length in the two Maimarim from now. Ki imcha mekor chaim. Just to summarize here, the Shita of the Ramak is much more correct and much more smooth to follow. Why? Because Keser kadmo ha'heder mamash. Because Keser is something that was not there and then it became there. Kadmo ha'heder. It is mechodash. It has a beginning. It's not kadmon. And even Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum is not kadmon. It has a beginning, like every or, every ray has, every light has a luminary. Every or has a ma'or, has a source. And whether it is after alos haratzon to emanate spheros and to have worlds, or even kodem alos haratzon, even before alos haratzon, the or itself is mechudash. And it's כמו שקדמו ההדר. We have here like three levels, so to speak. There is something that never was preceded by Heder, never was preceded by non-existence. That's number one. That's what? How you call it? Kadmon. Something that was not preceded by Heder is Kadmon. Nothing preceded Atmos. You call it Atmos correctly, Sterne. But we can see that Or Ein Sof has it too. But we're talking about the Or itself. So in Atmos, nothing preceded it. Wasn't preceded. Atmos was not preceded by Heder. Atmos was not preceded by non-existence. Atmos always was. And that's why you call it Kadmon. Right? And nothing else is Kadmon by itself. Because everything else other than Atmos is not Kadmon, including Or Ein Sof. Or Ein Sof is the second level. So first is Kadmon. Kadmon was not preceded by Heder. Kadmon was not preceded by non-existence, because it always was. Then comes the second level. Atmos is Kadmon.
Atmos is Kadmon and Kadmon is Atmos?
No, that's not an equation.
No?
Atmos is Kadmon. Yes, you can say, you can interchange between them, but it's not the same, it's not mamash the same, identical, because why do you have two words? Atmos means God itself, and about that you can also say a lot. We're not differentiating anything. So God itself is Kadmon, is primordial, which means was not preceded by non-existence. Nothing preceded it, has no cause, and it always was. Means that Atmos, since it always was, it was never preceded by non-existence. Since it always was, Atmos always was, it was never preceded by non-existence, because it always was. What about Or Ein Sof? That's number two. Or Ein Sof, the Rebbe calls it כמו Heder, כמו שקדמו ההדר, as if was preceded by non-existence. Why? Because Or Ein Sof is always mimele, always was there. But we will learn that it's a ara retzonis. Hashem wants it to be there. It's not must, not automatic, not natural, like the sun. And since Hashem wants it, it's kemo kadmo haheder. It's as if it wasn't preceded by heder, because it's always there because Hashem is always here, and His light is always here. But it's as if it was preceded by non-existence. Why? Because Hashem willed it. Hashem chose it to allows it to be emanated. And because of that, it's as if, because He doesn't have to. He didn't have to, He doesn't have to now. Or Ein Sof doesn't have to exist in order for Hashem to exist. It doesn't complete anything in Hashem. And therefore, on one hand, you don't say Mamash Kadmo HaHeder because it was always there with Hashem. But it is as if Kadmo HaHeder, because if Hashem wants, it will not be here. So it's as if it coming after not being here. Theoretically, it doesn't have to be here. So it's kemo, that's the importance of the word here. Kemo is if was preceded by non-existence, because it was willed. It's willed out. It's emanated from God in a willing way. And then there is a number three. Number three is Kadmo Eder Mamash, that is preceded by non-existence. And this, in that case, is Keser. Keser comes after the Tzimtzum. It comes in Or Ein Sof. And it's preceded by Heder. There is a level where Keser doesn't exist in the Or itself, before Alos Haratzon. So we have the three levels. We have Kadmon, we have Kemo, Kadmo Aeder, and this Kadmo Aeder, preceded by non-existence. There is a difference between Ratzon or Ha'ara Retzonis. Ratzon is what you're talking about. Ha'ara Retzonis is on one hand is Ha'ara, is automatic. You don't create some kind of a new will, a new interest in something outside of you. That's what Ratzon is. Something comes up that the nefesh is now leaning towards something else. The Ha'ara, the Or, is something that comes mimele. Is not something that is born. Ratzon is something that is born. All of a sudden, it's born a Ratzon to have this dress. I walked by the store and I saw this. Wow, I would like to. I'm talking to my husband about it's $300, but you know, Yom Tov is coming and I have to prepare for Rosh Hashanah already. So I wanted. This is a new Ratzon that came up. He'ara Ritzonis means that on one hand is He'ara, nothing new. It is like for the Shemesh to shine, it's nothing new, it's not investment, it's it's mimele, it's an automatic kind of expression of God, but yet it's Retzonis. He's not must by it, he's not forced to do that. And since it is with his permission, so to speak, it is done by itself without him investing anything. Like the sun is not investing itself in its rays, and therefore they don't make any shinu. No matter what happens to them, doesn't matter make any shinu in the sun. But at the same time, the sun is muchach to shine. Hashem is not muchach to shine, but he always did, and that in a retzoni way, meaning that it's not that he wasn't aware that light is coming out of him, and if he wants, he can stop it. And therefore the Rebbe calls it, yeah, it was always there, but it's a ara retzonis. It's mimele. Hashem doesn't have to invest himself. The light comes by itself. It's like when you look in the mirror, you don't have to invest yourself. The mirror reflects you, you know. And at the same time, it's the ara retzonis. It's done with the with Hashem's choice, if you can call it like that, and he can choose not to shine, not to express himself. We'll talk about it. It's a very delicate subject. It's dual thing. We'll talk about it in Mirz Hashem. That will be the subject of next week. Or Ein Sof Kemo Shekadmo Haeder. Yesh me'ayin. It's easy for us to understand, not how it happens, but the fact that Kadmo Haeder, now it's here, before it wasn't. What does it mean, Kemo Shekadmo Haeder? Meaning it always was, but it's similar to that which wasn't. To those things which were not to begin with. There is a similarity between Yesh me'ayin, something that wasn't there before and now it is, and between Or and Sof, which on one hand always was, but in a manner of Ritzoni, meaning it is if it, theoretically at least, it is in existence preceded by non-existence, if Hashem wills it. So it doesn't have to exist. It's not an absolute existence. An absolute existence is that which cannot be preceded by non-existence. That's only Atzmus has. Yeah, because Ratzon is something that needs to be created anew. And this is part of Atzmus itself. It's not a separate thing of him. The potential of our Ein Sof, the potential to reveal himself, the potential to shine. And in that, there is a Ratzon that arose to create worlds in which he will be, in this light should shine in. That's already later. Not in time, but in Mila. There's no time yet. How do I balance between my own initiations and the bittul to Hashem? Because if I am a channel for Hashem's will, the divine desires, I don't have any wills of myself. But that's not what Hashem wants. Hashem wants dira b'tachtonim, not to just be dira, to we should be not here, and His will should dominate. He wants His will to be expressed, aseh retzoncha kirtzono, that your ratzon should become His ratzon, like His ratzon should become your ratzon. So how do you balance between your individual self-expression, which we learned yesterday in Shara Yichud, how important kelim are, and they are the means through which Hashem could create dira b'tachtonim, because the kelim are enabling so many manners of expression and revelation. So how do I balance between being myself with my own thoughts, my own feelings, my own intuitions, my own inner callings, outer callings? How do I balance between myself, my own individual self-expression, through which Hashem wants to reveal Himself, and making sure that I'm revealing Him through revealing myself, through being bittul to Him? Because they have to go together. You know, you need to, before you make a decision, you need to kind of position yourself, align yourself, and ask yourself, is this now what I'm supposed to do? To take the subway and going shopping in this mall? If this feels that this is the right time to do it, and the right, this is what the right thing, then you do it. And yes, you learn all the lessons you need to learn. You maintain your presence. That's the avoider. The avoider is to maintain presence, to maintain an objective view of what's happening right now, without losing myself in any of my thoughts, my talks, my objects that are surrounding me, and so on. And just to be present, and then to ask myself, what does Hashem wants me to do now? What does Hashem want me to do now?